English majors need to participate in some sort of applied English experience before they graduate. And you'll hear about a lot of options today from our presenters of how you can fulfill that requirement. But more than that, English Plus is hopefully a shift in mindset to recognizing the value of the skills that you're gaining in your classrooms, in your academic situations, in your interactions with each other and with your professors, recognizing the value of those skills and seeing the many ways that you can apply them in contexts outside of college classrooms. Our first presenter is Madeline, and then we're going to proceed from there.
Like Trina said, my name is Madeline, and I'll be presenting my English Plus experience. During the fall, I participated in the Washington Seminar, an internship program open to all majors hosted by BYU in Washington, D.C. Last summer, I spent hours each week writing cover letters and sending out internship applications. With only a week and a half before the start of the program, I finally got an interview with a resettlement agency called the International Rescue Committee. My interviewer was a woman from Afghanistan who would be my supervisor. The next day, she emailed me with an offer. Even though it wasn't my first choice, I was lucky to have the opportunity and relieved to be done with the application process. At the agency, I would be an employment and skills building intern, which meant I would be writing resumes, applying for jobs, and interviewing on behalf of refugees. On my first day, my supervisor and I went to a job fair hosted by a local church service. It was in a tiny room in an office building packed tight with people all over the world, all speaking a different language. My supervisor spoke Pashto and couldn't even communicate with some of our clients, one of whom was a widow from Syria. She brought her 16-year-old son, who only spoke a handful of words in English. He had skipped school for the day to be her interpreter. Most of the employers had no interest in employing non-English speakers, but there was one agency that would hire people on the spot for a meat packaging facility. The line for this agency stretched across the room. I wondered how I would be able to hand out the stack of resumes in my hand. Our clients had little advantage over everyone else, with resumes that barely hit the half-page mark. I would have to be the one to advocate for them, creating narratives about their lives that would give them a competitive advantage. I never thought I would be on the McDonald's Apply Now page, but that's where my applications kept going. I tried to convince myself there was a better way to give opportunities to these clients, some of whom had degrees in political science and civil engineering. But McDonald's meant money, and that was the only option they had. Thinking there would be more money, more mercy from the system, I tried to find less demanding jobs for disabled clients. If I was lucky, I got rejected. I worked hard to find my internship and got something I liked, but I worked hard to find jobs for these people and got dead ends. As an intern, I assumed everything I was doing was typical because of the internship, because being an intern automatically means dirty work. Or so I thought. I brought these challenges up with my coworkers anyways. Most of them were refugees or immigrants from countries like Ghana, Nigeria, Thailand, Eritrea, and Afghanistan. They too had navigated adjusting to life in the United States. I spoke to them about the challenges of our clients, which in turn opened the floor for relationships and meaningful conversations about the refugee experience. While building resumes, I noticed patterns with the many Afghan families that we worked with. They came to the office with 2 or 3 kids, and the parents usually took on a traditional provider-nurturer structure in their home. In these families, the Afghan women had little or no experience in the workforce, but many domestic skills, like cooking and sewing and caring for many children. Because of the funding opportunities for these families, both parents were required to get jobs. I had tried to find jobs tailored to their qualifications, which were many, but like everyone else, there were so few businesses willing to hire anyone who spoke no English. Yet the creations the women showed me were beautiful and well-crafted, and I knew there was worth in their talents. I brought this up at a work meeting later, and we talked about possibilities for homemakers. We discussed connecting them with tailors and building small businesses, making jobs that could be useful and meaningful for these women. The floor had been waiting to be cleared for these ideas to have space. Now, the beginning of the semester had been very discouraging for me, but by the end I felt limited by the time I had in the city. I wanted to stay and implement the solutions we had brainstormed together. When I was able to collaborate with others, the impossible work seemed less possible, and we could envision a better future and ways to get there. Even though I lived in the Marble Empire of DC, I was still asking for clothing donations and filing for food stamps. It was complicated to live between the two worlds, yet this is what the humanities allowed me to do. I was able to translate my English skills to a place where English wasn't a first language. As an English major, I'm frequently exposed to new experiences while reading. Literature prepared me for the experience, but experience brought the literature to life. Even though I never saw myself doing humanitarian work, it turned out to be the perfect place for the skills I had built. Just as I would research for a paper, I built a repertoire of job options for one subject. Like close reading and text, I interpreted clients' experiences to make broader judgments of the world. Just like making a character for creative writing, I learned to tell clients compelling stories for an audience. As someone who applied to jobs for refugee clients, I literally acted on behalf of these people and felt a fraction of their struggle transitioning to a new country. Though we were worlds apart, telling their stories bridged the gap and expanded my world. Thank you.
As I was preparing for my internship with the Scottish Parliament, telling everyone I knew because I was so excited, I got many confused questions about how a political internship was going to relate to my English major. I'll be completely honest with you guys, I didn't really know, and most of the time my answer was, I don't know, but I know that BYU is giving me credits to move to Edinburgh, so I'm not going to ask very many questions just in case they change their mind. I'm hoping to go to law school, and have always been interested in the political world, so I figured and I hoped that that would be enough for me to fake my way through as the poli-sci major everyone was expecting. As it turns out, being an English major was more helpful to me than I could have imagined. I could speak for hours about all that my internship taught me about the humanities competencies that are stressed in our classes. Don't worry, I won't. But in the time I have here, I want to focus mostly on the importance of communication and the leg up that our experience in English gives us. I was assigned to intern for Stephen Kerr, a Tory member of Scottish Parliament. He had made his career working for Kimberly-Clark, the paper goods company, before transitioning to politics in his late 50s. Our team consisted of him, a data analyst, a former political journalist, 2 economists, a historian, an environmental activist, and me, an English major. Here on the next slide is us at our Christmas party with our paper crowns, traditional celebration and all. My very first day of work, I asked my boss what would make me a successful intern in his eyes. And he told me that the best way that I could contribute to the team would be to disagree with them, to question their stances, to be argumentative, and to make my voice heard, which is advice that I have never received from a boss before, nor do I expect to receive it in the future. As I collaborated with my team, I quickly realized that our main goal in everything we were doing was to communicate. Whether that was on the chamber floor, in a question to the First Minister, in a tweet, on the doorstep of a constituent, during campaigning, in a statement to the press, in a bio blurb on Stephen's website, or even in just our weekly team meetings. To communicate effectively, we have to understand all sides of the story. We have to hear competing voices. We have to encounter life perspectives that are radically different than our own. And then we have to take all of that information, synthesize it, come up with our own opinion on it all, and finally somehow articulate it, and articulate that opinion in a way that appeals to and makes sense to others. That, to me, is the English major. We spend our days looking to the works of others, trying to learn something. We synthesize all that we learn, we form our opinions on it, and we endeavor to share that opinion in the best way that we can. This learning pattern, this pattern of communication, is what drives the world forward in every discipline and field of work that you can imagine. Legislation is passed by this pattern. Medicine is developed and distributed by this pattern. The past is understood and the future is planned for by this pattern. And we, as English majors, train ourselves to be experts at this pattern, which gives us the ability to contribute meaningfully in many workplace settings. In my internship, I performed many different tasks and my role varied somewhat from week to week. I combed through local Scottish newspapers every day, searching for buzzwords that tied into our team's parliamentary focus. I did many research projects and hunted for sources with information about Mr. Kerr's assigned committee, the efficiency of local councils internationally, how to promote zero carbon commuting practices, the net overspend of health and social care partnerships in each council area, different campaign strategies, and even a probe into the disrespectful and inappropriate conduct of a local council member. As a team, we wrote speeches and questions, decided who to endorse in Scottish and British Tory party leadership contests, initiated countless freedom of information requests, wrote newspaper quotes and articles advocating for change and accountability, and campaigned for constituents in their local by-elections. I list out these activities not to render an account of what I did for 4 months, not to try and show you that I did more than just travel through the beautiful Scottish Highlands, and not even to try and convince you of the importance of Scottish parliamentary work, though in my very biased opinion, it is important. I list the things that we worked on as a team to show you that in the work itself, there is no common denominator. The only guarantor of efficiency in any work is the ability to communicate. The only way for our whole team, for the economists, historians, businessmen, and English majors of this world to be really successful was to communicate with each other in a way that made sense, in a way that moved things forward. All of those many projects hinged on our ability to take in information, understand it, and convey it. And so, in Edinburgh, in a team full of people with diverse academic and professional backgrounds, and certainly much more experience than me, what I had been taught to do in my English classes here at BYU gave me the tools to follow the orders of my boss, to disagree, to question, to argue, to listen, and to speak. Being an English major in the political sphere was not random, not unrelated like I wondered if it would be before I began my internship with the Scottish Parliament. Instead, it was a great asset to me, as I'm sure it will be to you in all of your professional endeavors. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Caroline, and I'm really excited to talk to you today about my internship that I did last summer for the Deseret News in Salt Lake City. There I was a trending news intern, and I had the opportunity to write and publish over 100 articles on Deseret News' website page. So really good opportunity to get published. I worked in their office, headquarters in downtown Salt Lake, which is also shared by the Church News and KSL News. And so it was really fun to just go there every day and interact with these other journalists who had 20 plus years of experience. There I had interactions with my boss, Kelsey, who worked remote, as well as my manager, and I had my own little desk that overlooked downtown Salt Lake, Temple Square. It's amazing the kind of writing inspiration you can get with that view, and so I had wonderful opportunities to write about 3 specific beats, which are topics that journalists write about. I wrote about travel, entertainment, and movies, and how-to articles, especially pertaining to heat and natural disasters, like how to escape your car in a flood or things like that. And so at the Deseret News, I was able to practice journalistic integrity and communication, especially when I interacted with people that I had to interview for certain articles. One example of this is the stadium fire event that happened at the 4th of July. For those that were there, for those that heard the news, there was a fireworks malfunction that happened, and it hit and injured certain members of the audience. And so, of course, the next day I had to go and I had to report on this event. And so I had to call the police station, the first responders, the hospital, stadium fire representatives, and see what kind of information I could glean about what had happened, who was injured, and what was being done about this event. Which was a good opportunity for me to practice communication skills and for me to ask pertinent questions towards the people who were involved in the incident. The next is information literacy. When you write a lot of articles, especially about things you don't really know much about, you have to make sure that everything you say is accurate and clear. So, in order to do this, I would write a pitch every day on what I was going to write. It consisted of the title, this is an example title, the intro, the titles of the first and second sections, and little blurbs about what I would write in those sections, like contributing factors to Utah's air pollution and what Utah residents can do about air pollution, as well as different sources, where I got this information, keywords, so if people searched up Utah air pollution, then my article would rise to the top, as well as what we call the slug. This is what comes after the website, deseretnews.com/whatever. So this is an example of something I had to write that I knew nothing about. Sharks tested positive for cocaine off the coast of Brazil. Why does it matter? I had no idea. And so I had to do my own due diligence and research this and look up studies, and so I did. And with substantial time and help, I created a report, an article on this issue, and explained why it matters to people and why they should care that sharks are being poisoned by cocaine off the coast of Brazil. And so this is just one example of many of how I utilize information literacy. The next is cultural navigation. Now, I didn't travel out of Salt Lake for this internship, but I did have to deal with topics that were very international, especially because one of my beats was travel. And so, for example, the Olympics took place in Paris last summer, and so I had to cover a few things that were happening in Paris. How people needed to interact with others during the summer, especially with high temperatures, with protests that were going on. There were some people that went on strike because of the pressure of the Olympics. And so I had to navigate not only why these issues mattered to these people, but what they should do about it, how they should think about these issues from an objective perspective, just as I was trying to write with journalistic integrity. I also went to several press releases for movies as part of my beat. This was one of them. I don't know much about the movie critic world, but I had to also approach these things in a very objective way, recognize the acting involved, the writing, the directing, and also recognize maybe what kinds of flaws were occurring in the writing and the directing. If is a magical family-friendly movie despite its imperfections, so I needed to be able to write about these things without involving any kind of defamation in my remarks towards the people who were involved in these kinds of movies. Although that does not stop the general public from using defamation in their own way. People would often comment on my articles as well as others about things that they didn't like, and very often they were rude and they were cruel about the things that they said. And this hurt at first until I learned that my writing matters and my opinions matter. And the things that I write and that I research matter. And so I just needed to remember that even though people disagree with the things that I say, I can still keep writing, and you can too. One thing that my boss said just in closing is that sometimes you paint the Mona Lisa and sometimes you paint the bathroom wall. And I found that this applies to writing too. Sometimes we feel so good about something we produce artistically, and sometimes we just feel like it was all research or it was just kind of mundane. But it still matters, and your writing matters. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lizzie Peterson, and for 8 months of last year, I was the digital editorial intern for Strive to Be. Strive to Be is the church's youth account on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. I found my internship by first looking at the BYU Technical Writing internship page, but ultimately found my internship on the creative writing page, and here are the QR codes. If you've never been to the website before, they have little summaries and pictures of internships you could apply for. I clicked on the picture that looks like this, and at the bottom of that page, I clicked on the link that's highlighted in the middle there of that picture. I eventually moved to Lehigh to live with my aunt and uncle and their 2 babies. My cousins' names are MJ and Audrey, and now as you can see, we are best friends. I believe that the internship experience can be wonderful, but so can the experience outside of the internship. And one of those ways was becoming closer to my family. And another example, while I was in Lehigh, I was using a dating app and ended up meeting my husband. And if you recognize the girl with red hair, that is my cousin MJ, who was our flower girl. I commuted to Salt Lake City almost every day using my BYU ID card as a ticket. And if you didn't know, the BYU ID card acts as a free ticket on the front runner and the bus, which is so cool. And there's a picture of my view of the temple, which is also so cool. BYU prepares us for the world outside of school. And as English majors, some of our strengths are communication, information literacy, and cultural navigation. As an intern, I replied to all of the YouTube comments left on the videos. I had to decipher what a person might be trying to say and then reply to them with the voice of Strive to Be. In the next slide, you'll see a screenshot where the message says, "I love it song is good morning to have, heart, 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 heart." And this can mean a lot of different things. Like the heart emoji can also mean love. So I decided to respond with, "This song is good for any time of the day." I also learned to ghostwrite. We would interview youth from around the world and then shorten their story that was an appropriate length for a caption and rearrange their sentences to make a hook in the first 5 words. Usually a post will only show you the first 5 words, and then the user has to click see more to finish reading. So a hook is best if it jumps into the drama. And here we have, it's talking about soccer, and we have a picture of soccer, so hopefully youth that are interested in sports will click on the see more. I also wrote captions to promote Strive to Be's music. In this reel, we wanted to remind viewers to read their scriptures and share that the upcoming song releases were inspired by scripture, which you find out more if you click on the ... During my internship, I was introduced to SEO. SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. We would use the tool TubeBuddy to help us improve our SEO strategy. Through trial and error, we'd insert relative and quality keywords and improve our video description until we scored 100. Doing a good job in SEO helps the video pop up at the top of the list of research results. This is what happened, or I guess the next slide, this is what happens if you search if you believe in Google. Here we have our first and third video being from Strive to Be. I'm not really sure that if you believe TV movie, I don't know if I can recommend. But it's good that we're up here versus the 44th page. I wrote some magazine articles for the Strength of Youth that they may or may not choose to publish this year. It was a good professional experience in researching, writing, and editing. We would send things that we had written to other people, and having that correspondence was really awesome. The church has a global audience, so we had to be mindful that we didn't use trends or slangs popular only in the United States. Once I was given criteria to write a real script, but quickly realized that the criteria didn't match the brand voice of Strive to Be. So I pointed this out to my supervisor and gave alternatives of what we could use as a real script. Some of my team worried that this photo would be insensitive to the flooding of Brazil that happened that summer. But we learned that it would actually be received as a message of resilience. And so it was a good thing that we double-checked. After my internship, I graduated from BYU in December, and now I volunteer at the U's Institute Marketing Committee as I apply to jobs and update my digital writing portfolio. Overall, I'm super grateful for my internship, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Awesome. I'm Henry Purser. I'm a sophomore in the Literary Studies track. I'll be talking about a couple different things here. Let me pull it up right here. An on-campus internship, the Research and Writing Center, Assumption Business Law, which is a law firm here in Provo, and the BYU Pre-Law Review. So the first one was on-campus internship, and that's through the business school. It's a class you can take called MSB 494. And the team I got put up with was a startup company out of Michigan that was working on illustrating the Book of Mormon to an audience that maybe usually wouldn't get that. And my role within that team was deliverables manager, so I'd write a lot of the documents we had to do. I wrote an engagement letter, wrote updates to the team lead on our progress with a lot of the deliverables we were doing, and I had to make these professional. And that aligns, a lot of the work we did aligns pretty well with information literacy humanities competency, where we locate credible information, identify patterns, and narrate the connections to relevant context. We had to do a lot of business research, which is not something I'd done a ton in the English major, but it helped a lot with making our advertising statements, where we had to do research in the audience we were trying to market to, and connect our product and the things we know about our product to that audience to try and help them buy it and find use in that product. The second thing I'm going to talk about is the Research and Writing Center, which, as Trina mentioned, is hiring right now. I highly recommend all of you to go and apply for that. It's super awesome. I think the open house is next week, if I'm not mistaken. But it also aligns really well with a lot of the humanities competencies. This one's taken from the website. Communication is to articulate and write coherent explanations and arguments with attention to the implications of language. And we get a lot of students come in that are asking for guidance or help with papers, and we talk with them about these things. It can also this is on our WC website. It helps us to enhance writing, interpersonal communication, learning, and leadership skills. There's a lot of student admin positions within the Research and Writing Center that make decisions and help guide those things. Another thing it does is to help us cultivate more skills with cultural navigation. And one of the markers of that is having a clear sense of our own cultural values and the challenges resulting from those. And something that the Research and Writing Center provides the opportunity to do that is through the Multilingual Writer Program. There's a lot of students at BYU that are multilingual writers who are super academically accomplished, but maybe don't speak English as their first language, and we have the opportunity to work with them. The third thing I'd like to talk about is Assumption Business Law, which is a law firm here in Provo that does civil litigation and transactional law. We often hire a lot of paralegals from BYU to help them with all their needs. This is a picture of the firm right here, except for 2 or 3 people that slept in that day for the photo. But as you can see, there's a big team of paralegals. There's probably 20, 25 in given time. We're all pre-law students here at BYU that want to get some experience in different areas of the law. And this aligns well, again, with the communication competency of the humanities competencies. It requires that students communicate to inform and persuade. Because most of it is, well, all of it is legal writing, the primary goal of all of it is to persuade a judge to agree with you. Another one is emphasizing discussion, drafting, and feedback. Once we finish drafting something, we always get feedback from other paralegals that work there or other attorneys. So we do a lot of drafting in teams as well. It'll be 2 or 3 paralegals drafting the same motion or complaint or piece of legal writing, and then we'll work together to communicate most effectively what we want to communicate. The last thing I'd like to talk about is the BYU Pre-Law Review, which is a self-published pre-law journal here on campus. Applications, I think, for this open up in a month or 2. But it's a super great opportunity to practice all the competencies and publish a paper at the end of it. This is taken from the Pre-Law Review website. It says, as a published author, you demonstrate your growing ability to research analytically and present meaningful insights. Editors show their abilities in critical review and analysis. So within the pre-law journal, there are both editing positions and writing positions, and students can do both of those. One of the competencies is to gather and make good sense of information. Within this class, writing this paper, it's probably been the most research-intensive project I've worked on. I'd estimate that we've done probably over 60 hours of research into different things, and it's been helpful to be able to navigate those. And like some of the other ones, this is also aimed at arguing, presenting a point, communicating with other groups, with editors, and taking feedback from board members and editors and then applying that. I know this was a super big overview. If you have any questions after this, you can totally come talk to me, but thank you so much for listening.
Hello everyone, it is great to be here with you today. I am Brianne and I would like to talk about the last 3 semesters of my college experience and how they've been so formative for my future career. As I approached my senior year at BYU, I was informed that I needed to fulfill an internship for an English Plus credit. I really wanted an experience that would just be comfortable. So thankfully, my dad got in contact with the place that he worked for, and I was able to find the perfect summer internship. Lyle Williams is an electrical manufacturer's representative company that has actually provided most of the lighting control that you see on campus today. The head of it all, J.R. Christensen, is not only the bestest, but the kindest boss. I mean, look at him. He's just so nice. I felt excited to see how my professional writing skills could connect to an industry I had never worked in before. These next 3 slides will show the various types of work I did. One of my largest projects included working closely in Excel to create an easy-to-use pricing system that would allow the company to compare the discounts of prices that they offered to the clients. An Excel spreadsheet feels the furthest from what an English major is competent to do, so I had to think about how I could work in my information literacy skills to be able to seek for relevant sources for the spreadsheet and make it a useful tool for the sales team. Since I only had a few months to be with this amazing company, I tried overall to make myself moldable and helpful as I could to each member of the team. Working at Lyle Williams never felt like work, as I was always excited and invested in the project that I was doing. It was electrifying, pun intended, to work with people that wanted the best for me and were ready to provide me with industry experience to help me grow. English Plus became completely necessary in providing the guidance I needed to transition into a professional work sphere. It didn't feel like a pointless class that I was required to take. Previous to Lyle Williams, I had only ever worked for a company to just work for them. Lyle Williams, like I had mentioned, was different, as it gave me a place to apply the various professional writing and communication skills I had learned. I appreciated how willing my professor was to meet with me and understand my professional goals. While the course did have standard units that you could work through each week, it felt completely applicable to what I was doing in the internship. Even when there were times when I felt unsure of how I could apply it at that moment, I felt that the content I was learning would be most applicable to full-time positions I could take after my education. One of the final projects we had to do as a part of the course was to draft a professional purpose statement. When I first drafted this, I'd struggled to define who I was in the workplace. As I met with my professor to review my draft, he helped me see that my professional competency was the ability to be adaptable to new environments, new projects, and new ways of thinking. Remembering the spreadsheet I showed you earlier, I had never learned how to create a tool like that. In my major, however, I learned how to analyze a situation, adapt it to the needs of my audience, and then communicate the results effectively. Without taking English Plus, I don't think I would have had as easy of a time connecting my classroom to my career. I did not want to leave Lyle Williams when school came around again, but I also knew that I couldn't give them enough time during the school semester. Before I left, my boss, JR, told me something that has shaped the last 2 semesters of my education. He kindly said, "Brianne, I know you are going to BYU, and as a Ute fan, I cannot allow that, but it's okay. No matter what, soak everything up. Learn everything you can, make the most of your classes. You will never have an opportunity like this again." I was able to do just that, as I finally was able to take classes that felt like they applied to the track in my major. I mean absolutely no offense to the history courses. I love them. I just don't have the spiritual gift to understand people like Chaucer, so if you do, that's great. I don't. My professional writing course has been one of the most effective in helping me answer the question, what are you going to do with an English major? The skills that we're learning at BYU can be talked about to apply to our future career aspirations. Every time a professor has suggested how I could be a better employee, such as maybe using AI to be a more productive writer, I could not stop thinking about what I could do at Lyle Williams. I started to see how my education and internship had blended together to apply my writing skills in a real-world context. Starting this current winter semester, I wanted to see what opportunities would be available for me after graduation. Just like it was when I was looking for an internship, I longed for a job that I felt comfortable in, that would provide me opportunities to learn new things, and that would have amazing people to work with. In thinking where I could work and if there were any options, I remembered the amazing company of Lyle Williams. I met with JR and the other managers as soon as I could, and thankfully was welcomed back. It is interesting to see that my new role at the company will be something of a marketing person or specialist. When marketing was the major, I actually considered switching to when I started my English major. I didn't know if I was cut out to be an English major, but I'm so glad that I stayed. My internship, which has now become my full-time job, has offered me a role I can grow into, with tailored opportunities and an amazing environment to practice my professional writing skills in. Whether you know what you want to do after you graduate or are still trying to figure out the details, I suggest applying your personal talents and ability into whatever role you land. I promise your future relies on connecting your time at BYU to your future career and the rest of your life journey. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Kaylee Smoot and I'm going to be sharing my experience with my internship at Inscape with BYU, which is BYU's literary journal, and I am so excited to be with you guys here today. I am a senior at BYU currently, and I have been on Inscape staff for 3 semesters, so it's roughly a year and a half. Okay, Inkscape Journal, published online twice a year by BYU's College of Humanities and Department of English, began in 1982 as an undergraduate journal. Now managed by BYU MFA students, undergraduates, and volunteers, it boasts a staff of over 50 and accepts global submissions. The journal curates exceptional, respectful pieces that explore both the fantastic and the everyday, celebrating diverse perspectives and backgrounds while rooted in Christian values. We have weekly meetings that are held on Thursdays from 5 to 7:50 p.m., depending on your position, and the meetings are divided into 3 periods: a group staff meeting with guest speakers and training, genre group evaluation submissions, and logistics meetings for organizing events and services. Genre groups read and evaluate submissions for our publication in 4 categories: creative nonfiction, fiction, visual art, and poetry. Logistics groups are teams like grant writing, social media, events planning, and web design that help promote and grow Inkscape as a brand. This is an example of what our schedule looks like. And I just pulled that from our most recent spreadsheet that we have. So I am a creative nonfiction assistant editor, and I sit on the editorial table and help decide what gets published in our final submission or our final edition of Inkscape. So I help send acceptance and rejecting letters. I help run a team that sorts through a slush pile of submissions, and I just do a lot of talking and friend making, I'm not gonna lie. So one of the benefits is that you do get to be published on our website. There's my name under Assistant Nonfiction Editors. So not only are you gaining skills to know how to edit, how to read and think about work creatively and critically, but you also get to have your name published. This is what our website looks like. Most BYU students have no idea what our beautiful, beautiful website looks like, which is designed by students who help run Inkscape. It is an unpaid internship, I will let you know that. But also, you get to have tons of experience with debate, making conversations, you're working with different teams. Like I said, there's grant writing, there's social media design, there's editorial table, there's just plain editing. And so you get tons of experience doing whatever you want. You really get to make the most out of this internship. So I wanted to share, these are 2 of the people that came to be guest speakers for us. It's Lisa Bickmore, who is the Poet Laureate of Utah, and Jennifer Adams, who has published over 50 children's books. So we have guest speakers that come and speak to us. Chris Schobringer, who is a publisher at Shadow Mountain, who has worked closely with Brandon Mole, is also one of our guest speakers. So as an intern and a volunteer, Inkscape is as much as you make it. You get to be in direct contact with these people. You get to ask them questions about their experience and how they got to where they're at. This is me with Ali Condi at one of our biannual galas for Inkscape that we have at the end of each publication edition. So you get to network with so many people. I think that's the biggest plus of Inkscape. Not only are you immersed in this English community, but you are in constant contact with industry professionals who are highly successful. Sherry Earle is the teacher that runs the Inkscape internship class, and I cannot say enough good things about Sherry. She's not only hilarious, but she pushes you to be your best self. It's a great, great, great internship. Sorry, this is a duplicate slide. I tried to remove it like 15 times. But Sherry's amazing. She pushed me to try new things that I never would have thought to try myself. And I needed that support because when I joined Inkscape, I was actually failing BYU and was on academic probation. And now I have an internship that I work with the church, and I help work on Come Follow Me. I'm in the publishing department with the church. I helped work on the devotional. I worked with Elder Bednar to do his devotional that he just gave. This is me with my editing team down here. I love Inkscape because the community pushed me to try new things like YANCon. I am not a novel writer. That's Young Adult Novel Writing Conference that BYU puts on every summer. That's Brandon Mole, and that is Sarah Czar. She's a National Book Award finalist. You should know who Brandon Mole is if you're from Utah. And this is me presenting at the English Symposium last year. So Inkscape is just amazing. It's an immersive community. They push you to do new things. They push you out of your comfort zone to try and really push yourself. And I am just so incredibly grateful for the experience and all of the support that they have given me. To kind of zoom in and see where I'm at right now, I'm looking at applying to jobs as I graduate in April, and I might even do a master's, who knows? Because again, this amazing community is pushing me to explore new things, and most of the staff at Inkscape are master's students, so they can give you so much help and insight on what it looks like to have a master's. Even here at BYU, we're applying to different programs, so tons of opportunities to make friends in many different disciplines. So yeah, home of the bizarre, believing in beautiful. I love Inkscape. I really hope you'll give it a try. It's volunteer based, even if you don't want to do the internship. So yeah. thank you guys so much.
So I want us to just really quickly, before we go to the audience, do you mind going back through each of you in like a sentence and distill the through line, one of the through lines, which is whatever that core, we call them competencies, that sort of underlying ability, the most portable, durable aspect of your English training that you did a great job of identifying in your presentations that carried over into these work contexts. So like rename whatever that was. Some of you mentioned more than one, but maybe one that stands out. And if in a sentence you can say how you saw it in a new way because you carried it into this new context. Starting here at this end.
Sure. So my name is Lizzie, and one of the competencies is cultural navigation, and I had to write in the brand voice of Strive to Be, and I feel like that is its own type of culture and navigating what is something that Strive to Be would say versus not say, and how can I change my replies in YouTube comments and captions and etc.
Great.
Hi, I'm Caroline, Desert News. One of the competencies that I think about the most with my internship is communication. And I think, you know, as an undergrad, I'm very used to receiving feedback on papers from peers as well as from professors. But in this context with my internship, I not only received feedback from editors and from my boss, but from members of the public who were sometimes antagonistic towards what I wrote. And so I think a huge thing for me was just understanding that communication goes both ways, and that you can have thick skin against some remarks that are hurtful while also having a soft heart and being teachable.
Thank you. I'm Madeline Miles. Again, my internship was the International Rescue Committee. And for all of you that don't know, which none of you would, I'm a creative writing track. And this was something that was way out of my comfort zone. But like I said in my presentation, it was a place where I found that I could translate my creative writing skills, my ability to make a compelling story. I'm not really a good writer, but possibly it was compelling. So, like in interacting with my supervisor, I found out that she hated writing resumes. She thought it was the worst part of the job. But to me, that was like the most important part of the job because that was what would convince employers. And so, going back to the competencies, that was where my ability to communicate and the communication humanities competency took place in my internship.
For me, my name is Ellie. I did the Scottish Parliament internship. It was definitely communication as well. That's where I really learned that, like, of all the backgrounds and all of the expertise that there is, none of it really matters if you can't communicate it. And especially when you have this interdisciplinary or interprofessional context, you all have to be able to have this common ground of communicating with each other. I think English has a unique perspective on that, and we specialize in communicating with each other.
My name's Henry. I think the most helpful competency to my English class experience has been information literacy, sorting through different sources of information, picking what's relevant, what's irrelevant, and then creating an argument for a cohesive strain of that.
I'm Brianne. I was with Lyle Williams. I would also say information literacy. It was really useful for me to be able to find the best voices within the job since I was so new, and see what they had to say about the work that I was doing and get their feedback since I was creating it for them.
And my name is Kaylee, and I did the Enscape internship. And Enscape was my jumping off point. You're joining a community of over 4 decades of people in the English community. And I would say your biggest gain is networking and soft skills, like learning how to work with different groups and learning how to reach out and connect and communicate within a community.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thanks, you guys. I think all the foreground's another thing for me as well, which is as interpreters of your experience, as translators of the value of your training, into other contexts, that's also a competency, right? That's a learned skill. Brandon pointed this out, that the curriculum, especially the internship curriculum, is designed to help you foster that ability, right? You just demonstrated it beautifully there. So can we open it up? Questions for our panel, either general or particular? Yeah.
I have a general question. I'm curious for you guys' different experiences with how you picked your internship and whether you were kind of like going on with your track or like your envisioned future career, or whether it was more just something that was in line with one of your passions like outside of the English major, but just like how did you guys pick between all of the different English plus opportunities that there are?
I just want to share. I mentioned this very briefly, but I was actually failing school. I was on academic probation. I was really trying to just push through really hard and finish school. And I really wanted to be a part of BYU and to push through and do really well. And but I needed an internship and I didn't want to quit. And I didn't qualify for like any other internship because I didn't have the GPA and I didn't have any experience at all. And someone said, "Oh, well, you already do Inscape. Did you know that there was even like something attached to it?" So even though it is a less rigorous internship in terms of financial support, in terms of moving to a different country or to a different location, it is so nice because it pushes you to put out quality work, but you get the comfort if you only have to attend once a week, and it's on campus, and it's really fantastic if you're already a busy student taking 12, 18 credits each semester. So that's why I chose Inscape, because it was very relaxed, it was very supportive, and it was very flexible.
I will just briefly mention, for me, I'm not positive I want to be a journalist. That's not like my end goal per se. And so I chose the Desert News for a couple of reasons. First of all, I just wanted it to get published. I wanted that practice of every day I had to go into the office and I had to come up with an idea for an article. I had to write it, I had to get it edited, and then get it published over and over and over again. And so having that kind of practice was really, really crucial for me to just clean up my writing and just become a little bit more malleable as a writer in general. And then another reason that's maybe a little bit more logistical, I think, is that a word, logistical? Anyways, I had already done a study abroad, and so I did not have a lot of money last semester, and so I would have loved to do an internship abroad, but I just did not have the money, and I still had rent to pay. And so the Desert News was nice because it was super close. It was a hybrid of remote work as well as being in the office, and it was paid, and it was 40 hours a week. And so that's kind of the basics of why I wanted to do that.
It's actually a really good question. It's kind of the core challenge, right, in terms of finding the right internship. Anybody want to speak to, like, if it was not adjacent or a direct extension of your track, how it happened and why it was still valuable?
Definitely. Well, I already kind of hinted at this, but I actually started out just wanting to do the Washington Seminar, which, if none of you are familiar, you have the internship, and then you have like a Friday seminar class where they'll have alumni come in and like talk about how they've applied their degree in the world. So we had a lot of politicians, some journalists. I met Mitt Romney. That was cool. Got to ask him a question. And that was a huge draw for me, like being in the city. And I was kind of like, whatever internship I get it. And I think at the heart of what I was wanting to do was to kind of push myself out of my comfort zone. And that is something I think a lot of us as English majors need to kind of do. Just do something completely different to see if you like it or don't like it. Because sometimes we just want to do things we like and then we kind of limit ourselves in that way.
Anybody else? Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a big aspect to it of just like going with your gut. So when I picked my internship, I was kind of at a place where I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I wanted to be or who I wanted. I didn't know anything really. And all of a sudden, Trina actually said to me, because I was asking her about another internship, and she was like, "Well, have you ever thought about going to Scotland?" And I was like, "Well, now I have." And it was just like immediately I felt like there was something like in my gut that was like, yeah, like that's cool. And I think this is a very unique opportunity for us as college students, where BYU is helping facilitate these opportunities for us, where it's like you already almost have like, if not a foot in the door, a toe in the door, where it's like, okay, you're a BYU student and you're doing this for college credit. We have this opportunity to try out something new. I never would have thought to apply, apart from BYU, to go to the Scottish Parliament. That wasn't even on my radar. So I think take the opportunity and do something that excites you, something that feels good to you, and something that maybe you've never thought of before, because when else are you going to be able to do that?
If nothing else, I hope this is a clear takeaway just from the diversity of this panel and their ability to, again, translate the value of their training, that these competencies are portable and they will stand you in good stead wherever you end up, near term, long term. Other questions? Yeah.
I wanted to know how you guys chose when in your college journey to do your internships and how you planned that.
So when you decided to do it and how that was part of the plan?
I did mine over the summer semester. That was most convenient for me. I hadn't really thought about it other than that, other than I just needed the requirement, and I was like, oh, I think like a summer semester would be great. And that worked out because the class that you have to take along with the internship, or that I had to, was fully remote. So it was really nice because I could just go into the office when needed, but other than that, be at home and do other things. So that was convenient for me.
I planned on graduating this April in 2025, but I met with John Cook, who's like a career mentor, and he helped me look at my classes and said, oh, you could actually graduate in December 2024 if you wanted, which was like a nice wake-up call, and I realized, oh, I need to get this internship done. So that was the fuel to my fire, and I probably should have looked into it sooner, but I ended up applying to my internship like the night before it was due, so it worked out.
I actually would add, I don't know if there's a specific rule on how many internships you can do, but I would encourage you to do an internship as soon as possible into your career. I'm currently on my 3rd internship, and I mentioned that I work for the publishing department for the church in Salt Lake right now, and I just helped hire my replacement, and the 5 final candidates all were on their 3rd or 4th internship, and that's why we picked them, because they had so much experience and they were so far into their skills. So I don't want to intimidate you, but I would encourage more than one internship.
I say, Kaylee, Henry, I mean, the English Plus requirement is kind of minimum standard. Have one experience at least, but maybe just always be interning. Right?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I think for me, so I'm graduating in 2027, and for me, I had some bigger internships that I wanted to get to that are harder to get into. And so as soon as possible, like with the on-campus internship, that's something you can do in your first semester at BYU if you want. And it gives you the opportunity to talk about something in later interviews and later applications and kind of act like a stepping stone to get up to things that you maybe really want to do that really relate to your career that you want, that you maybe can't get into like whenever you want.
Time for a couple more questions. Back here in the back.
Just a simple, a yes/no answer for the first question, and then however you moved in the second. So the first question is, did you use or were you encouraged to use a large language model in your communication? Just yes/no. Second, what competencies did you bring to this job that could not be done by a large language model?
By that he means AI, right? ChatGPT or something else, right?
Yes, I use AI in my job every single day. Especially working for the church, we use AI all the time because it helps reduce the amount of work that you do so that you can move through way more projects. We publish hundreds of things. I think last semester I did 72 projects alone. And so what I would say I would bring is you have an editor's eye. Specifically in my job, I ask my bosses all the time, is this a pointless track for me to go into? Is my job going to be replaced in 5 years? And they say, absolutely not. You get to make moves and decisions that ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot or whatever it is could not make. It can't be trained to make because you understand like the ebb and flow of marketing or business or digital user experience just in a way that is multifaceted that a non-human could not do.
Kind of. When I first interned, I didn't work with it when I got brought back, they said, we want you to teach us how to work with it. So a competency that I'm bringing into going back in May is how do you use AI to help make the company more productive and streamline more things. And it's been interesting to just think about the possibilities, but also know that there has to be someone in the background that can get the ball rolling before it can just go fully automated.
So, I mean, everybody else is a no in terms of AI?
I would say yes, especially working as a paralegal. Super useful. It's good for like initial research and getting like an error of something you're not super familiar with. After that, it's not very good at technical insights or anything like that. So I'd say moving away from that is best as soon as you understand what's going on. Other sorts of AI that I use all the time are like note-taking on meetings. It'll record meetings, make transcriptions, give summaries, make action items, that sort of thing. So I'd say yes, use it all the time, but it's not best at anything that's not mundane.
I didn't use it. I think I used it once in my whole internship, and I think that was hyper specific to the work that I was doing, because all the work I was doing was like very localized and very specific to like that day. Like I was going through newspapers every single day, and so AI wasn't really able to help me with that. Also because it was like AI doesn't know a ton about Stirling, Scotland, and like the local council members there. But I think one thing that I was able to use it a little bit, but I think there's a competency that we bring to the table that AI doesn't necessarily do great at, is I was able to know that what was most important for my team. Because AI couldn't tell me that, but I knew what our team was looking for, and so I was able to use my own like critical thinking skills to say, okay, this is important for this. Maybe AI can give me like a summary or something like that, but I have to go in as the human and say, this person needs this person needs that, and piece it all together.
So if the answer to that question was half the panel this year, I think as in succeeding years, it won't be whether, because it'll be everybody, whether or not. And the issue will be how has your training equipped you to use it better? And that's we're starting to see some of the answers to that. Just as maybe by way of a parting thought, I've heard some, as kind of on the stage advice givers, whether it's what you might have done differently or just take other takeaways that people should keep in mind. Heard things like follow your instincts or start sooner. Any other just observations, what you learned from your experience that your peers might keep in mind? Yeah.
I would just say, and obviously your internships will range from, working in an office to going to Scotland, right? There's a lot of different opportunities. But I would say if you ever have the opportunity to do like a hybrid, like work remote and be in the office, I would say be in the office as much as possible. Do not lean into I can work from home, I can stay in my pajamas. It's tempting, I know, and there may be a few days where you need to do that, but please do everything you can to be surrounded by your coworkers, surrounded by colleagues and people who do this for a profession, even if it's in a field that you don't want to pursue for a career, for a lifelong career. Really just try to expose yourself to a wide range of thoughts and behavior and professionalism and soak it all in so that you can then take it back to school or often to grad school, wherever you might be going, and that will help you in the future.
Yeah, others? Thoughts? Yeah.
I think don't be afraid to apply to stuff. I've had a lot of experiences where I was thinking, well, I probably won't get this because I don't know if I'm qualified, and I was surprised by the result. And I think a lot of people can be dissuaded from applying or trying new things because they think, I'm not qualified, I wouldn't be good enough, I'm not ready yet, I'll wait for a year or two.
I think along with that, don't worry about imposter syndrome. I had the most intense imposter syndrome ever. I remember sitting in JFK airport and being like, I'm not going to board this flight to Edinburgh. I can't go. I'm going back to Provo. And because I was like, there's no way. I don't know why they accepted me. I don't know what I'm doing. There's no way I can do this. And I still felt like that. There were many mornings that I would wake up and be like, I can't believe I'm going to go in again. I still don't know what I'm doing. And that's hard. That's a hard feeling. But if you can, just get rid of that and go in and be the kid that learns and be the kid that asks questions
and embraces the fact that you're new at something. All interns are new. That's like the definition of an intern, is that you don't know what you're doing. And so embrace that and ask questions and take it as an opportunity to learn. And instead of being afraid and being shy, just like let yourself grow, because you will grow automatically just by doing it.
The world is full of imposters.